Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Songwriting Simplified with me, Jonny Lipsham, here at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk here in the southeast corner of Scotland. I hope everybody is doing well and has had a great first half of their week. And as Kyle says, away we go. Yes, away we go with the show. I hope everyone's had a first great half of the week. I've had a very, very busy one. Not just with my day job. I've had a very busy one with trying to take care of everything for my dad's funeral, which is happening on Monday. So I got a lot to do, and I got a lot of things to sort out and get into place, and trying to do that as well as do my job is a lot of work. So traveling down to England on Friday night, and then I'll be spending the weekend there. It's Valentine's. It's not where we're going is not maybe the most picturesque and romantic places for Valentine's, but it is what it is. So we're there for Valentine's, and Valentine's also happens to be our 20th anniversary of since we started dating. So because we got together on Valentine's Day in 2006. So it's a bit of a weird Valentine's this year because it's Valentine's and it's also my dad's funeral at the same time. So so we're not going to like the most picturesque part of England, unfortunately. I wish we were. I wish we were going to, somewhere nice and romantic in Derbyshire or Cambridgeshire, but no, we're not. We're not. We're actually going to a place. I'm not going to name the place, but it's kind of not far away from Manchester, but also not far away from the Welsh border either. So, so that's kind of where we're going. It's not a very picturesque place at all, but it's where we're going. And it's where my dad lived. So, and it's where his funeral is going to be held, and where he's being cremated. So, so that's kind of what is coming up. And so on Wednesday next week, there will be no show. I've decided it. I wasn't sure whether I was going to do one, but I have decided I'm not doing one. And of course, Sunday, there won't be a show either. So this is the last show until Sunday week. So not this Sunday, but next Sunday. Okay? So be aware of that, and don't be kind of coming around here and saying, where's the show? Why is the show not happening? This is why the show's not happening. So we're traveling down on Friday. We're going to be there for Saturday, Sunday, because we have to gain access to his house, and we have to clear his house and all of that. So that'll be happening over the weekend, and then Monday is the funeral, and then Tuesday, I have to meet with solicitors, and then we travel back home to Scotland. So yeah, it's gonna be a bit of a bumpy time. And so yeah, that Wednesday the Wednesday after we're back in Scotland, I'm not gonna do a show because I'm just gonna be way too tired. Because I know that this extended weekend is just going to take it out of me. So so that's what I've decided. So just to keep everybody up to date with information, that's what's happening. So no show Sunday, no show next Wednesday, but there will be a show the following Sunday, and hopefully we will be back, if I could speak. We will be back to a much more regular pattern of shows. And also, I will be publishing the videos that I started making in December, that I then never posted because of my dad's death. So I've got those. Most of them are edited and finished and rendered. I just need to upload them. So they will start appearing over the course of the next week or two, because I've still got quite a few to do. I shot all my videos. I just, I pretty much downed tools so that I could go and be with my dad. And so the videos mostly never got edited. and they certainly never got rendered. So all of that's going to happen over the course of the next couple of weeks. So there's going to be a bunch of Studio Pro 8 videos coming that will help unpack some of the features and some of the things that I kind of skipped over in the overview video that I did put out, because I shot that video weeks before the release, and I got it done way ahead of time. And I thought I was being smart and being ahead of schedule. Turns out I was not. I still didn't manage to get the videos out. So anyway, that's the story. That's what I'm sticking to. And like I say, we'll be back to normal after that. So, who is here? Billy Morgan has restored his place as the first person in the door, followed by Tony, followed by Steve, followed by Kyle, followed by Keith, followed by Dwayne, and Brett is here as well. And Kyle's saying, wife and I dated for 5 years and married for 45, so 50 years. What the hell was I thinking? 50 years! Congratulations, my friend, on half a century of being with your lovely lady. That's awesome. Let's see who else is here. Dave is here. Good grief. Hello, Dave. Good to see you. Don Oliver is also here. Eric is here as well. And I'm trying to see who else is here. Okay, some of our regulars aren't here yet. But this show does tend to be kind of the one that's less attended compared to Sunday Night Live, because we focus on songwriting, composing, and arranging and music theory and all the stuff that goes into that. Brett says, like there's a normal in this group. Well, I would say there is no such thing as normal. Certainly when it comes to people. People are not normal. There is nobody who is normal. We are all quirky in our own kind of ways, really. Some of us are more quirky than others. And I think that's all okay. So it's all good. I'm very, very proud of this little community that we have gathered together. And I love you all very much. You know that. Anyway, so songwriting, composing, arranging, and music theory. This is your chance, folks, to get questions into the chat on this kind of stuff. And then I will do my level best to answer your questions. So fire away, get them into the chat. I would love to take your questions on those topics as much as anything to keep my mind off other stuff that's going on. So please do challenge me. No question is going to be too difficult. Because if I don't know the answer, I'm just going to say, I don't know. And we'll move on. Or I will try and find out. But for the most part, if I don't know, I don't know. So yes, please do challenge me and we can talk. I would love to talk music theory in particular. But I would also love to talk about melody, harmony, rhythm, time signatures, metric modulation, because believe it or not, yes, you can modulate time. You don't just modulate between one key and another. You can modulate time, which is, I know it kind of sounds very kind of Doctor Who. If you're into that kind of show, certainly sounds a little bit science fiction, but yes, you can metrically modulate. Kyle is really pushing the boat out for challenging here. He says, explain Beatles-style vocal harmony in 100 words or less. Well, it was mostly 4-part harmony, and actually John Lennon in particular was influenced by a lot of barbershop-style vocal groups that he had heard when he was in the United States. So he heard a lot of that kind of music and liked that kind of close-voiced harmony. So a lot of the harmonies that they wrote together, that Paul and John wrote together for their songs, are influenced by that close barbershop kind of sound. However, there are songs that don't follow that format. For example, Love Me Do is a great example of a song that doesn't follow that. And Hey Jude is another song that doesn't follow that either, because those two songs are mostly two-part harmony. Although Love Me Do actually does have a third harmony part that you don't really hear all the way through the song, but it does have a third part to the harmony. And those are what we would call open voiced chords. So what's the difference between closed and open voiced? I'll show you. So closed voiced harmony would be something like that. Now this is a C major add 2 chord, because we're adding the D, the second degree of the scale. And that is all close voiced because the top 3 notes are literally a tone apart. And then you've got the fifth at the bottom. So this is close voiced harmony. We can do an open voice version of this. So let's split these all up a little bit. So we can put the third down here, then do the fifth, and then do the root, and then we can do the second on top of that. And this is a favorite voicing of Burt Bacharach, actually. And Richard Carpenter used this quite a bit, although maybe up the octave. You hear this quite a bit in Carpenter's songs. So those are this is more open, but you still got the tone together at the top there, which is kind of a little bit dissonant. So this would be closed. Another way in which we can do this is we can go 9, 5, 3, and then put the root at the bottom. So that is what we would call open voicing. And you can open it up even more. So, you know, we could take that third out and put that at the top. And really space that voicing out now. Okay. Alan Holdsworth also liked add 2 chords. But he liked to kind of close the gap a little bit. And sometimes he would double fifths, which is generally speaking something that you don't do. You don't double fifths because you create something called parallel octaves. And parallel octaves kind of does tend to weaken the harmony a little bit. But it is that whole kind of parallel octaves thing is kind of a harmonic convention that, you know, as we moved through the 20th century into the 21st century is just not really a thing anymore. And parallel octaves are just fine for the most part. But parallel octaves and parallel fifths, there's parallel fifths, were things to avoid in the Baroque period, the classical period. And by the end of the classical period, they weren't really a thing. But that said, the people that basically said, avoid parallel octaves, avoid parallel fifths, were the people that actually used parallel octaves and parallel fifths. Johann Sebastian Bach being probably the biggest culprit of that thing, even though he kind of said, avoid these intervals, avoid parallel fifths, avoid parallel octaves, write your harmony part to avoid those things. And yet he would break those rules himself. So yeah, you can listen to any of his chorales or his cantatas, and you'll find that he breaks that rule regularly. So so that's open voicing, close voicing, and like I said, Richard Carpenter, particularly with the Carpenters Close to You, is a very fine example of using close harmony, especially when you get into the final chorus. The vocal harmony there is very, very close together, kind of barbershop style. And Steely Dan was another group that really liked that close barbershop kind of sound. So it had a big impact upon the Beatles, on the Carpenters, on Steely Dan, on Burt Bacharach. So that's Beatles style vocal harmony. It's not unique. I would say that what the Beatles did was really bring this particular vocal harmony style and vocal harmony writing technique to the fore into broad popular music. It really had only been a kind of US thing that you would find in places like Chicago, maybe New York City, and maybe New Orleans, and that was probably about it. And then so when this kind of music started making its way over to the UK, that's when it started spreading around the world. And it's still a very that kind of close vocal harmony is still a big thing today that you'll find in popular songs all over the shop. So that's Beatles vocal harmony. Brett says time modulation sounds interesting. Not sure I'm familiar with that term. So metric modulation is where you change time signatures without changing the underlying pulse. So for example, if you have 6/8 and your pulse is a dotted quarter note, and then you go to 4/4 where the pulse is the same, where the quarter note has the same temporal value as the dotted quarter note without having the same metric value. So the pulse, the underlying pulse remains the same. So you go from da 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 to 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 da 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 da. So that's a kind of metric modulation. So you're changing the time signature without changing the underlying pulse. That's one form of metric modulation. You can do lots of incredibly complex ways of metrically modulating, like how you get from one time signature to another without the listener really understanding or realizing that you've moved from 4/4 to 7/8 and then back again. Groups that were very good at this, Rush. Rush was very, very good at metric modulation. You'll find metric modulation over an awful lot of their songs because Neil Peart was very fond of the technique in particular and really, really made it work. Excuse me. I had to get that out. Billy Morgan says, can you show how to add chords from the plus symbol in the inspector for one bar sizing in chord track without having to resize each note length in chord track, please? Right. That was okay. I think I understand what you're saying. So I'm going to open up a new song and we are going to see if I can do that. Hang on just a second whilst I get a new song going. So let's go new song, blank, new song. Okay, that. Close that. And there we go, screen. All right, so let's open the chordy track. And we can open the inspector, but see here it says no chord, no track selected. So the first thing you have to do is select the chord track. Having done that, when you click this plus button, you'll see now, we looked at this a little bit last week. You will see that you have major and minor. So we did major last week, so let's have a look at minor. And we will grab one of these at random. Let's see, which one should I can't change key for you. Let's try this one. So if you want to select one of these, you just click on it, doink. And what you'll find when I close it, you'll find that all of those have now been added to the chord track. Now, notice we didn't even select a key here. So because we didn't select a key, it automatically it assumed the key of C major, and therefore everything here is in the relative minor of A minor. So let's see what this is going to sound like. So we're going to have A minor, and then we're going to have D minor, and G, and E minor, and then back round again. And then, see, to make this into a proper loop, what I would do here is I would select this, and I would change this to E7. Because this now gives us a perfect turnaround. So let's loop this guy. And then what we can do is we can get an instrument track and we can move these down to an instrument track. So let's go and grab presents, put this in here, change the color because I don't know why it does that. We'll close the inspector because we don't need it anymore. And we will go and grab piano and we'll go full. And we'll give it some reverb because we like reverb. So notice now how when you click that plus symbol in the chord track inspector, let's just go and close that and we'll open this up again. You'll notice that when we clicked this and we selected a preset, everything was one measure apart from this one here. This one here is a two bar chord. We got chord 1, chord 4, chord 7, chord 5 minor, chord 1, and then 1, and then 2, and then 5. So I might adjust this, and I might move this along a bit. No, it's not letting me do it. Maybe I need to split. I think I need to split. There we go. Let's split that, and then let's change this. Let's make this C instead. So we're going to the relative major at this point. So what we're going to do now is we're going to drag all of these down onto our instrument. So what it's done here is it's put all of these by default into root position, which of course gives us something that doesn't sound completely pleasant. Why is that? Well, again, we kind of looked at that a little bit last week, and this is something to do with a technique or a sound that we get, which I call hedge hopping, where we do this. We're doing big leaps instead of the voicing moving more naturally with each voice in each of the chords moving at least stepwise, basically next door notes. So I've put these in here without actually playing a single note on the keyboard. So what I can do now is I can double click this guy. We can close the inspector again because we don't need that. And I'm going to show you, I think I did this a little bit last week, but we can play around with this a little bit more. Let's see, you guys are talking here. Billy says, thanks. Yes, no problem, Billy. Dwayne says, is there a specific type of harmony sang in Neil Sedaka's hit Breaking Up Is Hard to Do? Yeah, some of that is kind of that barbershop kind of close-voiced harmony, but some of it isn't. But yeah, he's basically gone for what I would call that good choral arrangement, which is where each of the vocal parts doesn't move by a massive amount. You've either got a static middle voice with other voices moving around them, which I would call that an internal pedal point, or each of the voices is moving by a step up or a step down or a couple of steps up or a couple of steps down. That is good, what I would call good vocal harmony arranging. And so we're going to do a little bit of that with this. In fact, I'm going to change the sound. I'm going to change the sound to something that you guys probably don't have, but it might be rather fun if we do it. So let's go for studio background vocals with light vibrato. So we are doing the whole vocal harmony thing. Okay, now that we've done that, let's adjust some of these voicings so they don't sound so daft. So I'm going to use the Harmony Wizard for this. I highly recommend you get this, especially for doing vocal arrangement, seeing as that's what we seem to be talking about tonight, vocal arranging. So there's an obviously big gap between these two first chords. But the voice leading to the next chord kind of sounds okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to select these here, and we're going to change the inversion by clicking on this up arrow. And let's see what we get. Much more natural. Now this one also needs to change, so we'll select this one and we'll go up. And we'll maybe go up one more as well. Now for this diminished chord here, I'm actually going to drop this down a little bit. And the reason being is because I want this voice here to lead into this note here. Okay? And most of them, apart from this last chord, is a 4-voice chord. The rest of these are 3-voice chords. So we're dealing with triads at the moment. So let's loop this. Now, I think I maybe need to make this one go up one as well, to see if I can make this connection between this chord and the next one a little bit better sounding. And that sounds much more natural. So basically, as you can see here, pretty much every voice is moving by step or it's static. So if you look at these two chords here, you'll see here that the bottom two notes are static and the only one that changes is this note here. So we go from the G major to the E minor just by moving one voice. And then when we get to the next chord, you'll see here these two have moved up by step, but the top note is static. In fact, the top note is static for 3 chord changes. All right? So you could say that what we have here is we have an inverted pedal point because we've got a note that is static at the top of 3 chords as the underlying voices change. Okay? And then again here we have some static voices here. The top 2 are static, and then this one moves down by a step, and then this is a new voice. So whoever is singing the 4th part here is only coming in on the very last chord. They don't have anything to do until they get to the last chord. So if I was to write this for 3-part harmony, I would because we've got 4 voices, but we've only got 3-part harmony, what I would do is I would give the low note here to the tenor part. And then when we get to this part, I would write in the score the word div, as in divide. And then the 2 tenors would then, the tenor parts would then split into 2. So person A would sing the top part, person B would sing the bottom part. Okay? And this is how I would write for a vocal group for doing backing vocals behind a lead vocal, for example. And so this is kind of one of the ways in which I would do it. You take the chords that are root chords, root voiced chords, and then you adjust the inversions to try and make all the notes kind of more or less moving stepwise within each of the chords. And when you do this, you are always, for the most part, going to get something that sounds natural and something that sounds good. So the more voices you add to a chord, the more inversions you're going to have to play with, which will give you more variations for different harmony parts. So what could we do to make these into 4 voices? Well, we could select this and we can turn this into A-7. Now, what I would have to do is I have to drag these all down and then revoice all of these. But that would be okay. That would be fine. So I could turn each one of these into a 7th chord, and that would give me all of these chords being a 4-note chord, and then you would have more options. So let's get rid of all of this that we just spent all that time doing. It's fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all of these into dominant chords. And then we will drag them back down. I'm going to turn this one into a major 7. And then this one here will be B diminished 7. Yeah, that's fine. Or we could call it we could call this B-7 flat 5 to E7. And seeing as we're in minor, we could add an extra voice here. We could have a flat 9 as well. So we're making the voicing just a little bit more interesting. And then we select all of these, drop these down, and they're all in root position again. But that's okay. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to invert this one down a little bit. And then this one can come up 1. And then that one can go down 1. That one can stay. That one can go down 1. That one can go up 1. Maybe up again. And then this one can go down. Maybe down 1 more. And then I'll leave the last one and see how that sounds. All right, so let's see how these sound. Yeah, I like these. Yeah, I like these. Now, what I might want to do here, because I do have maybe some more static voicings that I don't want, I could maybe take this one and move this up 1. And that may be, well, this note still ends up being static, which is what I wanted to avoid. So maybe I could drop that down 1. Let's see. Yeah, I maybe don't like that. So let's put that back. And that gives us 3. That actually gives us 3 static chord notes between these 2 chords. This one is the only chord that note that changes. Oops. Let's try that. I like that as well. Now, what if we change this one, put this one down? Let's see what that does. Yeah, I don't like that. I think that was okay where it was. And so that is pretty much how you do it. And then what we can do is we can glue these back together, make that one event. And there you've got yourself some backing vocals. And they're all singing the one sound, which is this one here. But we can try a different sound. We can try the urban choir. Where they have huge vibratos. Try this one. All right, so there you go. There's a little example of what you can do by selecting one of the presets, sets of chord changes, putting it into the chord track, and then using Harmony Wizard to modify your voicings so that your voicings sound a little bit more natural. Because what the chord track does is it by default puts them in root position, which gives you that hedge hopping thing, which does not sound natural at all, when what you really want is something like, which sounds much more natural because all the voices are moving by step, and so the movement is much more natural and it sounds a lot better. So there you go, using Harmony Wizard to adjust the voicings. And there's a lot more you could do. You could select specific voices. You can change just one voice in the chord. You can create a melody above the chord. You can do 4-note chords. You can double at certain intervals. There's lots of things you can do here. And you can strum. You can distribute chords, quantize. You can change the chord legato. What else can you do here? You can change the chord voicings. If you don't want to change them manually, like I did, you can use these presets here. Double the melody 1 octave above, double the melody 1 octave below, double lowest note 1 octave below. Create accent on top note, which is going to basically adjust the velocity of the top note so the top note sounds a little bit more like it's a melody. And then there's these two different voicings. You can do drop 2, which basically drops the second voice down, or drop 2 and 4 for voice note chords, dropping the second and fourth voices in the chord, dropping them down as well. And those are great for kind of more jazzier sounds. Like, let's see what this would sound like if we selected all of this and then we go change chord voicings and we do drop 2 and 4, and then let's play this. Okay, yeah, so it's a little bit more interesting. So let's undo that. Let's try just drop 2. See what we get. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So let's just undo all of that. So basically what that was doing was taking the second voice in each of these chords and dropping it down an octave. And this is a particular harmonic technique. And actually, it can work really, really well. I thought the drop 2 and drop 4 sounded really nice, but you ended up with some really static low notes, which I didn't like. But you might actually prefer that better. So you can then, having done your drop 4, drop 2, you can then invert that drop 4, drop 2 up a little bit more until you find voicings that you like the sound of. So there you go. I hope that this was helpful to you guys. Let's go back over to the lounge and we'll see what you guys are talking about. Anybody else got any other questions about chord voicing and voice arranging? Because that's how I would do it. Additionally, I would say also, if I was going to do, kind of static pad chord sounds for a horn section like saxophones, if I wanted to create like a harmonic bed from saxophones, I would use exactly the same technique for altos, tenors, and baritone saxophone. I would do exactly the same technique. I would adjust the voicings to make sure the saxophones are moving stepwise. And again, I would employ maybe drop 2 or drop 4 and drop 2 to create a difference between close voicing and open voicing. So what I might do is I might have more contrast between one chord being closed and then the next one being drop 2 and then go back and so on and so forth. So I'm not having every chord being drop 2. I'm maybe doing this every second or maybe every third chord. Or maybe I'm just, selecting a particular chord where I think actually that would work better if it was more open than the other ones. It provides some nice motion and some contrast. So if I was doing something that was kind of bed-like like that for saxophones, that's how I would do it. And then I'd put, brass on the top of that, providing melody and some counter melody. So that's how I would do an arrangement for big band as well. So Harmony Wizard is really, really powerful. I've given you a little bit of a practical demonstration of how you can use it to do backing vocal arrangements. And you can play with once you've got all the voicing sorted out in block chords like that, you can then go and start to play with chopping the notes up and making some nice little rhythms out of them. And then once you've done that, you can then figure out, okay, maybe between this chord and this chord, I'll put a passing chord between the two, and that will create some more motion and some more interest for your listeners, because that's what this is all about. This is about creating interest for your listeners. So once you've got that whole voice leading thing sorted in block chords for your vocal arrangements, then the next step is contrasting, open and closed voicing. And then the next step after that is creating some rhythmic motion. And then finally, your final step is, where can I put a passing chord that will lead between one chord and the next one? Maybe you employ some tritonal substitution to do that. Maybe, just like a chromatic passing chord. That's not even a tritonal substitution. It is just a passing chord chromatically leading to the next chord. So all of those things are things that you can do that will bring a lot of life to your backing vocals and also to horn section arrangements as well. So I would highly recommend that you get Harmony Wizard just for those tools in particular. They are very, very powerful. Lucas has done an absolutely wonderful job with creating this product and all of these macros that will basically do very powerful and very creative things to help you get the kind of chord changes that are really going to make your song come to life. So using the chord track in the way that I've shown you there is a great way to basically kickstart an idea. So what I have now is I've got something that could kickstart an idea. I could maybe select something from the drum metronome to provide a little bit of a groove whilst I lay down some other things. Like maybe this will kickstart a little melody line in my head. And once I've got that little melody in my head, maybe the next step for me after that will be, okay, can I put some words to this melody? And then I've got a song just spontaneously coming together, which is not normally the way I compose songs. But that said, improvising songs is great fun. I love doing it. I love just sitting down and just going, I'm just going to make something up and see what comes out. And some of my best songs have actually, that's how they've come together. They've been completely improvised. And then it's just a case of putting some additional flesh and some ear candy onto essentially an improvised song. Secret Squirrel says, I can't see what you're doing on screen as your image square in the center of interface. It should be fine. I don't know what you're talking about, I'm afraid, Secret Squirrel. Are you on a computer, or are you on a phone or a tablet or an iPad? If you're on a small device, you're not going to see what I'm doing on screen. You're just not, because the screen is going to be way too tiny. But if you're on your computer, you should be seeing this in full screen, because that's the way I have this set up. I have it set up as full screen. So when I go over to my main screen here for Studio Pro 8, all of this is full screen. And in fact, you're not even seeing me. You're just seeing like everything that's in Studio Pro. I'm in the top corner now, but I wasn't before. I forgot to switch it on. But yeah, this should be full screen, because I'm not capturing just the application. I'm capturing the entire screen, which is why you can see my taskbar from Windows 11 at the bottom there. So you should be able to see this completely full screen. But if you're on a small screen, then now I am, but that wasn't before. I've not changed anything. I'm sorry. So I don't know what you've been doing on your computer on your computer, but I didn't change anything. That's how I've always had it. Whenever I've shared my screen on my show, it's always been full screen. So I don't know what your issue is there. Brett says, sorry for random M, I'm on my phone. Oh, okay, so you've got like a stuck M. Okay. You had it good, now you switch back to your image in center. Yeah, I'm confused with what you're talking about. I've always had this show set up like this for as long as I've been doing Songwriting Simplified on my channel. And in fact, Sunday Night Live is done exactly the same way. And I've been doing that since 2017. So nearly 10 years of Sunday Night Live. And I've done it exactly the same way. I've not changed a thing. So I'm not sure what you're seeing on your screen or how you're doing it, and I don't even know the size of your screens. But I've literally not changed anything, so I don't know what you're experiencing there. Dave says, some of my best riffs came about from just jamming long hours and having it taped. Yeah, a lot of your camera feed is centered and layered over the Fender Studio screen. That's just a backdrop. That's not actually Fender Studio. That's just a screenshot that I'm using as a background. That's all that is. And I can even turn it off. Look, see? Right? That's just a backdrop, and I've always had a backdrop. For years I've had a backdrop. It's been different. Let's see, what one did I most recently use? I mean, here's another one that I have used. This one was for Studio One 6. So I've used that one, and then there's this one. Now, when we did the Fender Studio launch, I had this one. And then when we do Remembrance Sunday, I've done this one. That was for the 100 years remembrance back in 2018. But it's just a background picture. I'm not actually showing what I was doing. When I'm showing what I'm doing on my screen, okay, I don't know why you're confused. I'll be really honest, I don't know why you're confused. This is just a background. All right, when I'm showing something on the screen because I'm demonstrating something like I've just been doing, like when I was demonstrating using Harmony Wizard and all of this, which I've just done for the last 20 minutes or so, this has been what you should have been seeing. If I was not showing my screen, then you folks in the chat should have told me, because I'm pretty certain that I was showing the screen when I was doing all of this. So, yes, when I'm showing the screen and you see everything being done in Studio One or Fender Studio Pro, I'm up in the corner. And then everything else is being shown here. So, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry. Yep. So Dave was saying that he was saying that some of his best riffs have come about just from jamming for long hours and having it taped. Yeah, I used to do exactly the same thing. This is one of the reasons why when I rehearsed my band, I would throw up just a couple of microphones at the back of the hall, pointing towards where we were, and then I would just record everything that we did. Back in those days, I would record it straight into Cubase because that's what I was doing. I was a Cubase guy back in those days. And then latterly, I did it using Studio One 4 and Studio One 5. But I don't have my band anymore, so I don't record our rehearsals. But one of the things we did in our rehearsals is that we would jam at the end. You know, when we got to the end of a chart, we would just continue to play, and people would improvise, and people would improvise backings, and so, you know, we would do all of that stuff, just jamming, and it was great fun. Let's see. Brett says he's got to head off to rehearsal. Have a great night. Well, we're only running for like 5 more minutes. So if anybody has one last little question. Let's see. We can okay, you guys were chatting about metric modulation. We can certainly talk about metric modulation on another show, for sure, because it's a great subject, and it's actually a great little device, a great little technique. Adam Neely's done a couple of real great videos on metric modulation and the power of it, and how you can make really, really cool things that are really, really simple sound really sophisticated. Which again, is one of the things about using something like Harmony Wizard is by revoicing the chords, you can make something that's very, very simple, like A minor, D minor, G, C, major 7. You can make that sound very complex and very sophisticated just by how you voice the chords. I mean, let's just take just the introduction to Steely Dan's Deacon Blues. It's so simple, but it sounds so sophisticated. But it's actually really, really simple. It's just D major 7, A with the added 2, with the 3rd in the bass, and then natural voice leading to C major 7, G with B in the bass, B flat major 7, F with A in the bass. So you're going, and And then you repeat all of that, but this time starting on D. And then you get E flat major 7. And then E7 sharp 9. Which is weird, because this is substituting for... this should be leading to A minor, like that, but it doesn't. You know, the verse doesn't start in A minor. The song is fundamentally in A minor, but it doesn't start there. It starts there. Okay? So you're lulled into this false sense of security that G13 is chord 1 and that we're in G major. We're not. We're in A minor, as you find out when you get to the chorus. Because the chorus is... So the chorus itself, again, is very, very simple. It's all stepwise motion, and it's all basically just 7th chords. There's nothing complicated about it. But it's all the chord voicing that makes it sound complicated and sophisticated. It's very, 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 very clever songwriting. No question about it. And, you know, if you listen to really, really great songwriters, even the Bee Gees, for goodness sake, you know, some of their songs, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with the songs of the Bee Gees, mostly because I hate the screechy, falsetto voices. Don't like that at all. But listen to everything else that's going on, and it sounds sophisticated. But then when you listen to it and you start to transcribe it, you start to take it apart, it's actually very, very simple. There's nothing complicated going on in their songs. And, you know, other great songwriters, Elton John, Bernie Taupin. Elton's melody writing is superb. And, you know, sometimes his songs sound sophisticated when they're really not. Again, they're just bare bones, basic, simple chord changes. But he makes them really, really interesting. Billy Joel is another great piano player songwriter who has a penchant for drop 2 voicings and things like that. And, you know, simple chord changes that sound amazing. So all of this really is to sum up that you can, with how you make the voices in each of your chords move and have motion, you can create complex sounding and sophisticated sounding chord changes with very simple chords. And using the harmony wizard and the chord track like that together, you can create something fantastic. All right, so that is us done. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you found it useful and helpful. If you have, smash the living daylights out of the like button. I would like that very much. If you're new and you've not seen the show before, welcome. I'm glad you are watching. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next show and you don't miss out on the rest of the Studio Pro 8 video series that is going to be coming out very, very soon. As soon as I'm out of funeral mode, I will get that done. All right, folks. Have a great night. Have a great week or so without me. Have a good one. And I will catch up with you post-funeral for the Sunday Night Live after then. Okay, so not this Sunday, next Sunday. That'll be the next show. Take it easy, everybody. Good night.